Today I'm going to be talking about the newly announced Canon EOS C80, which is this wonderful hybrid of a Canon C400 and the Super 35 Canon C70. I'm going to talk about what is being natively inherited from the C400, and I'm also going to talk about what is natively inherited from the C70, because it really is a blending of the two cameras to make this brand new camera that is actually priced at the original cost of the C70 when it was first launched. So if you're looking for getting those C70s, definitely check aftermarket, because I guarantee you they're going to be sky high. All that and more in today's video. What's going on, everybody? My name is James Jackson. If you're new here, I do tips, tricks, news, and reviews for the film and video making industry. So if this is content that you like, definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can stay up to date on all the content going forward. Clearly, IBC is just around the corner, because now there's a bunch of product announcements being launched today as well as tomorrow, as I've got a lighting product that I'm going to be talking about. I'm really excited to talk about it. I'm actually using this product right now in this video, so I really cannot wait to talk about it. I've had it for a while and I can't wait to go in for it. So tune in tomorrow for my review of this lighting product. Let's talk about Canon. So Canon today, this morning, just announced the C80, a full frame 6K sensor that is like the perfect baby after the C400 and the C70 had a drunken night of marital affairs, and out came of this is this beautiful little baby that is the C80. I'm gonna first start off with what is being inherited from the Canon C70, and mainly it is the body type that is being inherited from the C70, with a couple of much needed improvements and some that weren't improved that I wish they had, but let's go into it. The body is almost essentially the same, outside the fact that there's now two quarter 20s that are going vertically or literally down the line of the body, which took away that weird contraption of how the C70 was built. Now you could actually put two either quarter 20s, or you could put a quarter 20 and 5/8 right down the middle, so you can just put your tripod clip right onto it. So thank you, Canon, for that. There is now a new digital shoe mount that you can attach task cams and get. You can now get the full-size XLR ports, which I think will be great. It comes with a brand new top handle as well, which in terms of the designs, I really like this. It seems like they really looked at a lot of people like Condor Blue and all these other accessory people and built a top handle that really seems to go well with this body configuration, which is more of a mirrorless or old school DSLR style body, and it fits that. I really do like the new top handle. There's also a new Ethernet port that is on the body as well. But the biggest one, and this is why I say this is such a huge difference, there is a 12G SDI port on the body, which is to me one of the hugest things. It's one of my biggest critiques of the C70 when I still had that camera. It was the fact that there was really, for a camera that's really designed to be a bit more professional camera instead of just being like a mirrorless style body, it was the fact that it only had one video source, and it was HDMI, which for a lot of standard productions, SDI is the go-to output. Now they have it, you have 12G output, which also means that you can shoot 6K RAW out, which, or even 6K RAW out of the HDMI, which Canon has also confirmed that you can shoot RAW out of the C80 to something like an Atomos recorder, which will be great, because now for those of you that shoot, edit in Final Cut or Premiere, this is great. Hopefully Blackmagic will get on this and be able to shoot Blackmagic RAW outside of that, and where they can get 6K RAW out as well. I think that would be great to really give additional options. But the 12G SDI is, I don't want to stress how huge, because one of the big problems I've always had was the fact that there needed to be more than one video source. And now you have both 12G and HDMI on here. So that's 2 video sources now where you can send, like, you can have your on-camera monitor go out through the HDMI, and then if you have a first AC that's off to running wirelessly, they can now set up their wireless setup through the 12G SDI, and which will have much lower latencies and much better reaction times for your first AC, which is mission critical for a lot of sets. This is there, and so I'm extremely happy about that. Also, they did reinforce the hinge because that was another big thing, which is great. I'm glad. This looks like to be a much more robust and designed screen, so I'm excited. And also, it looks like the screen is also brighter as well. The one thing I was hoping that I would see an improvement on was the media port, but that doesn't look to be the case. It looks like it's still SD card slot only, which will really limit the capabilities of basically what the things you get from the C400. And I can totally see why they did it. It's definitely there to differentiate the cost and get more people reasons to go buy the C400, which is still, by the way, a very great camera. This doesn't change all that. So speaking of recording options, I guess this is a perfect time to go into what is being inherited from the big brother C400. And that is a lot of the image quality recording options. Most of them, not all of them. The Canon C80 is going to get the same 6K sensor that is in the C400. It is also backside illuminated sensor. It has fast readout speeds. It's getting that triple base native ISO as well. And you're getting to record 6K RAW internally. Now, the recording options are a bit different. For 6K RAW, you can only shoot up to 6K 30 frames a second, whereas on the C400, you can shoot 6K up to 60 frames a second. Now, you can shoot 4K in the non-RAW format up to 60 frames a second, and it's using the full sensor readout. But if you want to shoot 4K RAW, you will crop to the Super 35 mode, but you will be able to shoot 4K up to 120. Actually, no. In the RAW mode, you can only shoot up to 4K 60 frames a second, but in the non-RAW modes, you can shoot 4K up to 120 frames a second. So 4K 120 is there, and also there's a 2K mode that does do full readout that lets you shoot 180 frames a second. So you got a 2K 180 frames a second, 4K 120 frames a second, all full readouts options, as well as RAW recorded options where you can shoot 12-bit. And a lot of this is derived from the limitations of the SD card slot. But again, I think it's also a means to just separate them and say, if people need those high qualities, if you want that 12-bit 6K 60 RAW, you can go for the C400, which is a couple $1,000s more. But if you don't really need any of that stuff, or you don't shoot RAW and all, you just need to shoot 4K 120 or 4K 60, you can do that, and it is a fraction of cost, or for the cost of the original C70 at $5,500. When you start looking at all of this, this is actually a really incredible camera, incredible buy, given the fact that there's improvements for audio performance where you can now get XLR, full-size XLRs if you want them. You can get 12G SDI out as well as HDMI out, all great. If you need to shoot in various lighting conditions, you can shoot at the 800 or the 3200 or the 12,800, the various ISO ranges. So it's open there for multiple lighting conditions. And then you get all the various codecs. So you get RAW, you get the XF AVC, and then you get the new H.265 HEVC codec option as well. So if you want more compressed files, maybe you're doing stuff for like weddings and stuff where you don't really need that high data throughput, those options are there as well. So for me, this is an interesting time that this camera came out. Actually, it's not an interesting time, it's an expected time. It's IBC. This is one of the big conferences. I've talked about this before. This is the time where you're going to see a lot of product announcements. Seeing this come not too long after the C400 clearly shows that Canon is looking at people to get a lineup that can work together. They saw what Sony did with the FX lineup, where you had FX30, FX3, FX6, that all work in tandem, or the FX3 and the FX6 that share basically the same sensor, and you just go with the option that works best for you. Canon is essentially doing the same thing, but offering some options that is not necessarily in the FX3. So this is kind of like their FX3 model. but it's actually more towards cinema style because it's got internal RAW. You don't have to go external if you don't want to. It has SDI ports. The FX3 does not have that, obviously, and it's offering higher resolutions, but as well as keeping a lot of the similar recording options that you would get on the FX3, and even some that you can't without certain type of media cards like CF Express Type A. There's certain recording options you just can't shoot in. This you could just use V90 SD cards, and you still get the whole full options that is in the camera, which is really, really awesome. But strange enough to me, this is really a signal of really sort of looking at for Komodo versus C80. And I think this is really going to be conversational because now you've got really an interesting dynamic. You have RED, who dropped the price of their Komodo. Box only is $7,000, but to get it all up and running, if you go with the packages that are out there, it's going to bring you closer to $10,000. This basically is $5,500, and you're probably going to spend maybe $2,500 to $3,000. So anywhere between $8,000 to $8,500. So for a full frame 6K camera versus a 6K Super 35 camera, but the Super 35 camera has a global shutter. But this still has a great fast readout speed as well. So to me, this is, who is this for? It's clearly for run and gun shooters. One-man band. This is one-man band like to the T. This is one-man band. This is people that need to, that have maybe a crew of 3, where you may have someone working first day C, or you're working with a crew that just needs to send a video signal out to the client while also operating everything. But also being a one-man band for like run and gun documentary shooters. This is really what this camera's for. But what does this mean compared to the C400? For me, compared to the C400, this is basically DB. This is the B cam, and Canon clearly is aiming this to be the B cam. This is the cutaway camera that you want for the C400, and the C400 is really designed for large-scale production. It's the large-scale doc production, so where you need to have multiple signals out. Maybe it's live streams where you need to live streams where you have on-cam monitor, you need to send a signal to the switcher as well. Maybe want to send a director's view monitor as well. And there's much more professional features. There's higher data throughputs where people will willing to pay for the quality of those media card slots. That's really what the C400 is for. Whereas the C70 is really for lower, I would say more lower budgets. Get a camera that gets out of your way and just does the job. And that's always been the deal with Canon cameras. So I'm really excited to see how this camera goes. If you've been somebody that's been looking at it potentially at C70, I will say the DGO sensor is still great. And I think it's a really good performing camera. If you don't really care for super full frame, and actually maybe you love Super 35, then I think the C70 is still a good option to go with, especially given the fact that it's going to go really, really cheap now, because I guarantee you so many people are going to hit the aftermarkets and drop that in order to get this C80. But if you're someone that goes full frame, I mean, there's just no better option. You don't have to worry about adapting or speed boosting up to do that, where you could lose quality, loss of quality by doing that. You got a full frame sensor. You can put full frame glass on it, and really curious because interestingly enough, if you look at all the sensors of these cameras, they're 3x2, but Canon right now is not offering any 3x2 options, but potentially, maybe. We'll see. Anyways, these are my thoughts on the Canon C80. I would love to know what you guys think. Let me know. Leave your comments down below. And as always, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, take care, everyone.